Well, hey everybody, I'm John Rickland, back with another retro review, this time of ECW Anarchy Rulz 1999, the pay-per-view. And basically the reason I'm doing this, we're just a few days removed from the 20-year anniversary of this pay-per-view, so does it hold up? Well, like a lot of stuff from ECW, some holds up, some really doesn't. This was a bit of a messy show. It was also, if you look back at the history of ECW, they had just gotten on TNN, which became Spike TV a little bit later. They were having infrastructure issues like you wouldn't believe. They lost the Dudley Boys. This was Taz's last ECW pay-per-view appearance before going to WWE, and there were some talent depth issues. They had some really good moments throughout the years. Without ECW, WCW, and WWE wouldn't have gotten nearly as many good ideas and been as much attitude, I guess, had ECW not existed. So I say that much. I'm a big detractor of ECW, or at least some aspects of it, but I have to give them that much respect. So if you're an ECW fan, especially if you're a longtime subscriber, you know what I'm going to say. But I'm not saying you guys can't like ECW. I'm just giving a little bit of a background right here. And they also were only on TNN for like about another year after this. It's a real shame that that TV deal didn't work out all that well. They had a big crowd here, 6,000 people in one of the areas just outside of Chicago, or a suburb of Chicago. I'm not too sure about the geography of Illinois. I do apologize. But apparently it was about 6,000 people, which is pretty goddamn big considering where ECW had started and the fact that they kept having to grow and grow and grow and survive by the skin of their teeth. So good on them. And the crowd delivered some really great energy that did lend a lot to the show. So we're going to get right to it. Masato Tanaka, Judge Jeff Jones. They had a bit of a scrap there. Masato Tanaka is going to challenge Taz for the ECW title later. Judge Jeff Jones is the manager of Mike Awesome and says, oh wait, Mike Awesome deserves to be part of this. Tanaka shoves his head into the trunk. Tanaka and Mike Awesome actually had a feud in, I believe, FMW, if I recall correctly. And they would continue this during the show and throughout much of 99 and I believe into even part of 2000. But now I'm going to get into a bit of a rant because you have commentary by Joey Styles and Don Callis, who is Cyrus the Virus, whatever you want to go. Well, Cyrus the Virus was a play on John Malkovich's character from Con Air. I've never been the biggest Don Callis fan. I'm just not. I don't think Don Callis is that good at commentary. I think, okay, let me rephrase. I think that he can be when he's not just about putting himself over. Because sometimes in this, he actually could put over some talents pretty damn well. But there's being a heel commentary, and then there's just getting yourself over. And not many people have found that sweet spot. Sometimes Jesse Ventura found it really well, and Don Callis was barely Jesse Ventura on his worst day. And Joey Styles on his worst day was better than John Callis on commentary like 100 times over. So no, I've never really been that big of a fan of Don Callis. And yes, I know from his career in WWE, ECW, NWA, TNA, and other promotions, that kind of stuff, and then his commentary with Kevin Kelly. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not, and he's doing some good work in Impact right now. I've still never been the biggest fan. I don't find his commentary all that good more often than not, and I'm sticking to that. You guys can disagree if you want. Lance Storm with Dawn Marie versus Jerry Lynn. Jerry Lynn had been feuding with the Impact players, Just Incredible and Lance Storm, and there were some good exchanges. Jerry Lynn had his ribs taped, so Lance Storm focused on that. Sometime after, there were some cool pinfall exchanges, some cool dives. Lance Storm really underappreciated as a worker. Jerry Lynn, so often forgotten as being one of the best. It's a shame he didn't get to be a world champion more often. And I will actually have a countdown of every ECW world champion ranked from worst to best. Well, it's a ranking video, but still, I'll have that up at some point, and I will praise Jerry Lynn on that as well. But as I said, rib focus before. And Jerry tried coming back, but eventually he succumbed to the pain in his ribs. There was a quick inside cradle from Lance Storm, 1, 2, 3. There was also interference from Dawn Marie. She threw a chair at the referee. But it's Anarchy Rulz, so it's no DQ. The match was fine. There were some matches that felt like they just drug on a little bit, but probably to fill time because there were only a few matches announced, and then they had some segments that they just threw out there just to fill time. Like Simon Diamond coming out. And I like Simon Diamond, don't get me wrong. He was actually an underappreciated worker as well. But he does a promo, heel promo. Simon says he's getting the crowd, he says, well, Simon doesn't suck. And the crowd starts saying, you suck dick. Typical happy ECW crowd. And basically wants a tag partner. Jazz comes out. Yes, Jazz, the one that was recently in the All Out Battle Royal. And who has wrestled off and on for a number of years. She wants to team with Simon Diamond, but he says some incredibly misogynistic things, which is just a way to get heat. Simon actually doesn't seem like the kind of guy that feels that way. But he faces a guy named, I believe, Tom Marquez, or Jazz does, rather, because Simon Diamond says, well, beat him, and then you can team with me. Sure, let's just fill time with this. The whole point of this is then, it never starts because you get some people to run out there, including Tony DeVito, who botches horribly in the following tag match, teaming with Simon Diamond versus Chris Chetti and Nova, who would later become Simon Dean. This match wasn't much of anything. Yeah, Chris Chetti hurt his knee. Nova got double teamed. Tony botches this freaking move so bad. And look, I'm just a wrestling fan. I have never gotten competitive in the ring. Good Lord, it scares me. The mere thought of being in a wrestling ring scares me. And much as I love wrestling, I'm sorry. When you put untrained people out there like that, or people that just aren't ready for pay-per-view, it shows and it makes your company look bad. And that's kind of unfortunate what ECW did. They weren't the only one, but boy, this botch was pretty bad. Didn't hurt anybody, it just was really, really blatant. Everybody then suddenly runs out. We get Roadkill and Danny Dorian and the future Lita. I forget what exactly her name was in ECW. God, it was something or other. I can sort of think about it, but I can't quite remember. But the whole point is she's out there, and she gets in Jazz's face and has Jazz down. It's no contest, I guess. And then more people run out, and then New Jack runs out while his theme plays, well, a dubbed over version of his theme. The theme was the only good thing about never liked New Jack. Thought New Jack was an absolute garbage wrestler. And to me, I'm just saying. His interviews like on the Forever Hardcore documentary, his interview pieces were actually pretty damn funny. But yeah, New Jack ain't exactly, well, he tried to kill Vic Grimes at one point, throwing him off a scaffold. So I guess there's something to be said about pissing off New Jack. But he brings out weapons, including a staple gun, a pool cue shot on a road sign to a guy's balls. Typical New Jack. He leaves with Nova. They celebrate. Chris Chetti, I don't know what the hell happened to him. Hopefully he was okay. But, I think he legit hurt his knee because it's like he was really holding in his knee or his ankle. It's hard to tell. This segment was shit. It was shit. The crowd popped for it, but it was a thrown together segment to fill time. Then we get Little Guido with Big Sal versus Tajiri and Super Crazy. Met Tajiri and Super Crazy at 5 Northwest Wrestling Show in March. Actually, the same show I got to see Ultimo Dragon in. That was a real treat. What is 2019 in wrestling? Thank God I started going to indie events. So, that aside, met Super Crazy a few other times. If you get a chance, not that Super Crazy is going to watch us, please give Super Crazy your love if you ever see him at a show, if he performs at a show. The guy, can still perform the moonsaults just as good as he did in the 90s and 2000s. Yeah, everybody ages, but the guy still moves incredibly well. Incredibly well. He's in his late 40s, early 50s, I believe. I'm not totally sure on the guy's age. But he still moves so well. So does Tajiri. If you get a chance, once again, if you get a chance, give him some love. Give some, give some money for merch, autographs, shirts, whatever they have. They are really, the fact that they're still doing this in 2019 and probably will for another few years is really something. So, match was pretty good. It's a 3-way dance, so elimination match. The idea is one man gets eliminated, 2 men keep going on. Good series of momentum switches, some fast moves, some dives. Big Sal does interfere, but later gets put through a table. Super Crazy Hayne a moonsault off the top rope to the outside over the guardrail. And moonsault by Super Crazy in the ring. And Little Guido gets eliminated. So now we're down to Tajiri and Super Crazy. They have some good move exchanges, couple near falls. In the end, buzzsaw kick, big front drop kick, and brainbuster from Tajiri. 1, 2, 3. He beats Super Crazy in a pretty good match. It actually does hold up pretty well. There are some matches that hold up well here on this pay-per-view. And this probably is the one that holds up the best. Because I think Guido actually retired, but Tajiri and Super Crazy, I think, are part-timers at this point. Well, Super Crazy might be wrestling more than that. But these guys still, could cut a really good pace. Again, if Guido got back in the ring, I think they could still have a pretty good match. Imagine seeing that match in 2019. But still, good for what it was. Big Sal, it is unfortunate. I believe he passed away. I don't know what the issues were, but it is sad. He wasn't much of anything more than just a heavy, not making a fat joke. He was just nothing more than a heavy, like a bodyguard, whatever. But it is unfortunate. It's actually sad looking at some of this, how some of these people have passed away and how young they were. But to bring it back to a more positive thing, here's Steve Corino. And Rhino talking backstage. Well, Carino did most of the talking. Steve Carino with long hair weirds me out. Steve Carino, by the way, very underappreciated worker as well. And they talk about Raven and ICP. ICP were supposed to be at this show, but they signed contracts with WCW because WCW had to have some of that buzz. Remember those two fucking idiots in the ring? ICP, that is, not Carino and Rhino. Billy Corgan was in the crowd. Cool. Okay, we then get Justin Credible coming down and says he has a restraining order against Sabu. He will not face Sabu. The referee then says, it's Anarchy Rules, says the restraining order's out the window. Okay, I guess apparently the referee can just do that stuff. So we get... I've never been a big fan of Sabu. I'm sorry. The match was what it was. Justin Credible won, by the way, in a bit of a long match. I think they could have cut a couple minutes off here. But again, they were stretching for time on a lot of this. Sabu does dive outside onto the table. Credible, Credible's facing down on the table, so that could have ended really well. The spine isn't meant to bend that way, as Joey Styles said, who apparently was battling some form of laryngitis, and actually you wouldn't have been able to tell. I mean, I think he was doped up on meds, but he was still just firing off freaking things like crazy. Maybe that's why Callis was put there. Or it was to annoy everybody. I don't really know. Joey Styles, though, really underappreciated as a commentator, especially doing solo pay-per-views. Listen to him call, watch and listen to him call Barely Legal 1997. I'll put that up there with just about any call by a commentator. He did a phenomenal job. Whether I'm the biggest fan of Joey Styles or not, the guy really did a lot of good shit in ECW. So, Credible was bleeding. There were some chairs, some botches, shocking. Botches in a Sabu match. And then Justin Credible wins. Okay. Match was fine. At least it got Justin Credible a credible win. Yes, that was a terrible pun. Over Sabu, who by this point, I think by like mid-2000 was out of ECW. But it was what it was. It wasn't great. Maybe since I'm not the biggest Justin Credible fan, even though I have nothing against him, and I'm not the biggest Sabu fan, I wasn't as sold on this, but it did have its moments. We then get Masato Tanaka and Taz getting ready to have their match. And then suddenly, Mike Awesome's in the crowd with Judge Jeff Jones, and Taz is pointing at him and saying, no, Heyman, and Heyman was there. He's like, you know what? You promoted me as the baddest motherfucker on the planet, the human suplex machine. Anybody that will, I'll face anybody. Bring Awesome in the ring. Basically, that's pretty much it. It was a long-winded version that Taz did. He said, beat me if you can, survive if I let you. So, okay, we get streamers for Taz's entrance before that, and so we get a three-way dance. And Awesome and Tanaka start off, and then Taz gets a few moves in. But soon after, in just a few minutes, Awesome splash off the top. Him and Tanaka cover Taz for the 1-2-3. Guaranteed new champion in this match. So Taz is getting booed heavily and everything. You sold out. Yeah, well, guess what, ECW fans that were cheering that, by the way. You're supposed to go get more goddamn money, so you should have blamed Heyman for all that shit because of the fact that he couldn't pay the people enough. Yeah, how dare these wrestlers tear their bodies up for pennies when they could be making hundreds of thousands of dollars in another company, even if they wouldn't be creatively used as well. Yeah, how dare they? That's always been an issue with me when it comes to others signing with other companies. Even if I have issues with people signing with WWE, when there's other companies out there now, they want to make more money, they can make more money. So, anyway. So we get, so the crowd chants, na 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 na, hey, goodbye, to Taz. And the roster celebrating with Taz out there on the ramp or saying goodbye to him and this kind of stuff. Tanaka and Awesome continue in the ring. Chair shots to the head. These bothered me. The turning point for me with chair shots to the head was Mick Foley versus Mankind versus The Rock at Royal Rumble 99. That's where it's I'm okay, stop with the chair shots to the head. I mean, I got it. I got why they were done occasionally, but just having had concussions myself, or have had concussions, and knowing what concussions can do, and I'm not even a wrestler, obviously, or an athlete, or anybody that can do anything athletic. The whole point is that this is the stuff that doesn't age well. Now, Tanaka and Awesome threw everything at each other. There was a table bomb, big splash for 2, power bomb through the table soon after, 1, 2, 3. Tanaka kept no selling those chair shots to the head, almost got it, but nope. Mike Awesome became the ECW champion. Taz hands Awesome the title, show of respect, And then the roster celebrates with Taz, and the fans finally start chanting, "Thank you, Taz." Showing respect. The stupid drunk fucks. Moving on. I'm sorry if you were at this show and you were saying that kind of stuff. If you happen to have been at the show and were actually showing respect, I'm not referring to you guys. So anyway, we then get a Raven promo. He recaps the feud with Tommy Dreamer. And then we get Joel Gertner, who I never liked. I never thought the character was entertaining at all. Person, I ain't got nothing against Person. So then we get a Dreamer promo about his future, and Steve Corino comes out with Rhino. He sends out Rhino and Jack Victory, who's in a wheelchair, which actually pretty much sums up Jack Victory's wrestling career because he always seemed handicapped whenever he was in there. I'm sorry, that guy wasn't very good. He was like a knockoff Sandman. How bad do you have to be a knockoff Sandman? Boy, this is being needlessly mean towards some people. But we get Rhino and Dreamer, and then Jack Victory in a wheelchair. Dreamer wheels him down there, and Francine, who was with Dreamer at the time, cracks Victory in the head with the chair. Even though Victory had to leap into it, and I'm not knocking Francine, but just the way they did the spot, he had to jump up out of his chair, boom, and then he fell off, and then the chair fell into the crowd. Careful not to hurt the fans. All right, so Corino, Francine, Victory interfere. We get a double DDT. Because Raven runs down, and suddenly we get Raven and Dreamer against Rhino and Jack Victory. But then that becomes Corino and Jack Victory because Rhino just suddenly leaves. Nobody knew what the hell was going on, and Dreamer and Raven retain the tag team titles. The rivals that are unlikely tag team champions. Unfortunately, nothing has changed in 20 years because wrestling's still doing this bullshit. It's not how you promote tag team wrestling. But yeah, then we get Axel Rotten challenging Mike Awesome. Impact players come down and confront him and say, no, you want to rescind that offer. Well, Lance Storm says that specifically because Lance Storm was the best talker out of anybody in the Impact players. I'm sorry, but he was. And then we get, Spike Dudley and Balls Mahoney running down there. Spike Dudley hitting an acid drop on Dawn Marie, which was kind of funny. Dawn Marie actually was willing to take some bumps of credit to her. And then Axel Rotten says, well, wait a second. This one guy who was there, I believe Johnny Smith, if I remember right. He was a British guy. He got cracked in the head by Balls Mahoney. He said, well, wait a second. He was supposed to challenge RVD. Hey, Balls, why don't you go challenge RVD for the TV title in the main event? Turned out to be a pretty good idea because Balls Mahoney and RVD had a pretty good match for the TV title, despite the fact Bill Alfonso and that stupid goddamn whistle were there. It was wrestling mixed with brawling. There were some chair shots outside and some dives outside. Cool dive by RVD. That sprang off the ropes that he did. And, frog splash by Balls for 2. And, of course, Joey Styles says at one point, it's like, Balls is, after missing that, after not getting to 2 count, he said, Balls is hot. And then, of course, I first think of, UFC. My balls was hot. Was it UFC or Bellator? Let me know in the comments. There were some cool near falls, headshot, stop with the headshots. The headshots hurt. I mean, ECW is no longer around, but this may be difficult for me to watch some of these pay-per-views given all the chair shots of the head. Alfonso interferes, doesn't get hit with the chair, unfortunately. 5-star frog splash, 1, 2, 3, show respect at the end. So that's pretty much the end of the pay-per-view. There was a good mix of stuff. The big matches that were either advertised or given a good amount of time actually weren't that bad. Unfortunately, there was some bullshit in this. Now, the fact that Mike Awesome was a new champion and all that, all the stuff that I mentioned before, overall it wasn't a bad show compared to some ECW pay-per-views. But it did have some messy times. But anyway, that's what I have to say. Agree, disagree with what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.